To be honest, I don't really know how to start this, but hi, I'm Sylvanios, the former co-director and lead animator for Cross Impact, and today I would like to tell you a story. A story of something that never will be. As you may have guessed from the title, today we're talking about characters in Cross Impact. But what exactly do I mean by the guest that never will be? What is a guest character in Cross Impact? As you may know, the character roster of Cross Impact consists of a wide array of characters owned by Larsen Soft and other parties, like for example Lowe Bros Studios, Ciactro, New Blood Interactive and many more. Looking at the playable character roster, there's only one playable character from Larsen Soft and just a handful of assist characters. And these characters are the only characters you could make an argument for to be a first-party character, because Larsen Soft is pretty closely tied to Team Impact. You see where I'm going with this. When there are practically so many third-party characters in a game, you can hardly call them guests. While Nintendo Smash Bros. Is more like a Nintendo All-Star crossover where third-party characters function as guest characters, Cross Impact and games similar to it like Indiepogo and Framemakers are more so a celebration of indie games in general. An indie video game all-stars crossover, so to speak, but if this is what your game defines as, then what is a guest character? Well, look no further than Cross Impact, because Cross Impact already features guest characters in the form of Jay-E and the Shadow Wizard on its assist roster. Yes, if you ask me, characters from non-gaming media for a indie game crossover platform fighter shall be considered guest characters, and if I would still be the co-director of the game, this would be the narrative I would heavily push. Jay-E and the Shadow Wizard are outliers. Non-gaming characters and a crossover that consists of IP from the gaming sector. I guess you've seen where I'm getting with this. So let's not beat around the bush for too long. Yes, Cross Impact had a guest character on its roster of playable characters. We have been teasing the possibility for quite a while, and all the time it was a legit thing on the table. But who was that mysterious guest character I'm talking about? Well, it was Stefan Ackerheim from my novel Animal the Sanatorium Runaways. Yes, Cross Impact's first guest character would have originated from my novel, and today I would like to tell you the whole story. How this came to be, how this would have played out, and where it all fell apart. We will take a look at behind the scenes concept and everything that has been planned for Cross Impact's most ambitious DLC that will never see the light of day. I hope you enjoy. To start things off, I would like to take you a trip down memory lane. No, I will not talk about me discovering platform fighters with, I don't know, Brawl back in the day, or me writing the first ever novel or something like that. No, we don't dive that deep. But rather, I would like to start where Animal the Sanatorium Runaways would have almost been featured in a past platform fighter. On August 2022, a game called Indie Rumble went live on Kickstarter. What's notable about this game is that the current director of Cross Impact, Alan Larsen, also directed this game before it got cancelled. As soon as the Kickstarter of this game went live, I knew about it right away. I don't know exactly how, but I knew about this game on day one. What caught my eye was a $1,000 tier that allowed the respective backer to design a stage for the game. So I made a tweet just shooting in the dark, trying to clarify one thing. If I backed the project with that $1,000 tier, would I be able to design a stage based on my novel? And to my surprise, one of the Rumbleware devs responded and told me that this is fair game. So I got to work. I conceptualized the stage and also a little gimmick, which is a Stefan CPU just joining the fight alongside you and fighting against your opponents. It kind of functioned like Ridley in that one Metroid stage in Smash Wii U. You would even be able to KO Stefan and on the result screen see his stock icon. This was basically the closest thing I imagined that I could get to a playable of sorts Stefan in a plat fighter. For reasons I won't go into now, Indie Rumble got cancelled, and my dream of Anomal the Sanatorium Runaways content in a Plat Fighter basically shattered alongside with it. Some time has passed and don't ask me why, but I somehow caught wind of Stomp Party right on day 1. Again, I have no idea how, but I just knew about this game right when it got revealed on Twitter. Again, I have no idea how I caught wind of it, it just appeared on my timeline and there we go. And when I first saw the game, I thought, man, this looks like shit. But it was charming in a way of sorts, because it looked like these 2010 Newgrounds Flash animations, and given that the game was basically footsies with meteor smashes, the most satisfying attack to land in a Plat Fighter in my opinion, it practically just right out of the box appealed to me. It may not look like much, but I remember the first demo release fondly. The game was just fast, charming, simple, and just plain fun, at least in my opinion. But staying on topic, I noticed a tweet where they highlighted Accent Stomp Party and noted that anyone could join. So I got back to work. So I prepared a full-blown concept for Stefan and Stomp Party, alongside a stage, a full moveset, descriptions and whatnot, even a raw sample of the music that was from the trailer, and just sent it there. Just shooting in the dark, trying to pitch the character to the Stomp Party devs, and the character was basically greenlit instantly. Funnily enough, every bit of work that went into the Stomp Party concept later got repurposed for the Cross Impact concept for Stefan. So that all went down in October 2022, and in November 2022 I offered to make a full-blown trailer for Stefan and Stomp Party. I pitched an animated storyboard, did all the sound mixing myself, and I even hired a digital artist that was responsible to drawing all the panels in a professional manner for the trailer to get this sorta comic book style feel of it. And keep in mind, in December 2022, where we produced this entire trailer, the novel was not released in English as of yet. After some time, Cowabunga became the new director of Stomp Party, and he put the game on hold to prepare a big revamp. This also meant, anyhow, that Stefan's appearance in a Plat Fighter was also put on hold, but he was still a playable character on the roster. Speaking in past tense, and you will soon know why. While Stomp Party's rework was being conceptualized, Cross Impact's production was going on full force. I was originally hired to just be the announcer of the game, but then I started doing animations, learned really fast and pumped them out like crazy. I had one of the highest productivity rates of the entire team and thus became a very valuable team member. My work was so important, in fact, that when I took 2 weeks off in my vacation, almost the entire production of Cross Impact was on hold, almost entirely. In a casual VC, I randomly brought up the possibility of Stefan joining Cross Impact because Stomp Party's future seemed very uncertain at that point, to which Dallin actually showed a considerable amount of interest in. The topic has been brought up from time to time again, and after shift in management, I was told that the possibility of Stefan joining Cross Impact could seriously be considered, considering that we already announced the Shadow Wizard joining the assist roster. So I got back to work again, and considering that Axe was also confirmed to be a boss in Cross Impact, we could repurpose the Stomp Party trailer to reveal Stefan in Cross Impact. So the trailer would not go to waste, and I prepared a full document of everything that should be included in the Stefan DLC for Cross Impact. I also threw in there some additional things that were just optional for the management to decide if they want to do them or not. Fun fact, on the dev server we have sort of a daily update channel where every team member can share on a daily basis what they are working on, and I used it to keep my productivity relatively high. And while I was working on that document, I just constantly post about this in this update channel, but I did not go into detail and I did not tell anyone about it. Not even Vivi or Dallin had a clue that I was working on that pitch. Some team members had a suspicion what I was working on, but on November 7th, 2023, I sent the pitch to Dallin and Vivi and they were pretty much sold immediately. The concept did not get the green light on day one, however, because there were much more important things to take care of at that time. The game was getting close to the early access release, and thus the focus was more on getting the game ready rather than some licensing requests on the sidelines. But I knew, even though my request was on hold, I would eventually get an answer. But then something unexpected happened. Vivi stepped back from the position as the co-director, and on the 16th of November 2023, Dallin approached me to fill the gap. In the exact same message I received from Dallin, he also gave me the green light for the Stefan pitch. But now that Vivi was gone, that invalidated her approval of the pitch. And it was really important to me that both the director and the co-director approved of this pitch. So priority number one was to fill the gap by someone. And after a quick exchange on November 18th, 2023, I agreed to stepping in as the co-director of Cross Impact on the 20th of November 2023. And now I was in the position of greenlighting my own pitch. That was really awkward. So I was thinking this entire thing through again, and I was probably overthinking stuff, but my final verdict was that Stefan would be joining Cross Impact. And I have to admit that I was not able to put my personal bias aside. And after a 5-hour-long call with Dallin for a complete handover process, we also discussed the entire pitch. And to my surprise, the pitch got approved in its entirety, and you will soon see why. This is a crazy thing. And thus, Stefan was logged in for Cross Impact's roster of playable characters. In the first team meeting after my promotion, I revealed the news to the team and Stefan became a thing on the back burner for me, something to work on whenever I needed a break. I got contacted by Cowabunga to take a look at a revised version of the Storm Party revamp document, and basically the big thing was that Stefan was cut from the base roster, which was totally understandable considering that he now is in Cross Impact. Over the span of a few months, Stefan's base sprite got updated bit by bit. One version was actually considered final and received an idle animation, but then Vivi finalized her interpretation, which I touched up until it was perfect. The best of both worlds. And this would have been Stefan's final base sprite. When it comes to art, this was all that was ever made. A handful of base sprites, a scrapped idle animation, and the finalized base sprite. The scrapped idle has at one point also been imported to Cross Impact, but no coding has been done on the character, so don't expect any half-functioning mess in the code, because it does not exist. Let's rather draw our attention to the good stuff, the concept, which I will go over in its entirety. Just as a heads up, there are a couple of spoiler warnings for Anomal the Sanatorium Runaways itself, AMC's The Walking Dead, Sega's Sonic Frontiers, and Dragon Ball Z from Akira Toriyama. Because the novel hasn't released in English at the time of this pitch, I had a general description of the novel included. Funnily enough, the novel released on February 29th, 2024, just 10 days before I stepped down from my position as the co-director, due to issues with my mental health and general life circumstances that made continuing my work on the project impossible. In the document I gave a basic overview of the character, including the first ever base sprite I made for Stefan that I did in a practice stream where I practiced basically just pixel art. In that segment I stated that the animations of the character will be handled solely by me. Now onto the attacks, starting fairly simple with a grounded neutral attack, which was a 2-hit jab. Most of the Cross Impact roster feature a 1-hit or a 3-hit jab combo, so this was an effort to make Stefan stand out from the rest. Also, Stefan is known for his well-trained upper body, and this attack combo basically reminded me of Knuckles the Echidna, which was an attack he uses pretty frequently in the Sonic series. This jab has been in the concept for a long while, but considering how the base sprite of Stefan changed after the concept got greenlit, we probably would have scrapped this idea of a two-hit jab. The two-hit jab combo would not have worked that well when Stefan would constantly hold his backpack with one hand. So instead of a regular grab, Stefan might have gotten a grab in place of a jab instead. The idea was in a very early stage anyhow, so no concept out of the grab or the throws exist. Up tilt was very simple, but it underwent some changes. In a previous draft I had Stefan doing a somersault, but that never felt right because it would be too acrobatic for a 16-year-old boy that tends to use his strength in its rawest form. I was fiddling around with Ryu's weak up tilt from Smash Bros, but I did not see it working out as a chargeable tilt. Ryu's ump smash and strong up tilt came to mind next, but I feared that the motion might not be as readable when translated into Cross Impact's pixel art style, so I landed on an overhead swing with his backpack. Great anti-air because of its range and a good combo starter, but it does not link into itself that well and is not spammable because of its speed. Side tilt was a backpack swing that would have been good for closing out stocks. Again, a rather laggy move. Down tilt would have been a sweep kick and most likely his best grounded option due to it being his quickest attack on the ground and a combo starter. Dash attack would have been a shoulder bash, a direct reference to chapter 7 from the novel, no surprises there. Next up are Stefan's aerials, and for his neutral air, Knuckles makes an appearance yet again, because I really like how his sex kick functions in Project MMP+, and that's why I gave it to Stefan, it just felt fitting. Forward air's main inspiration would have been Dr. Mario's forward air from Smash Ultimate, so it would have been a powerful slam with his backpack. I liked how readable the sketches looked, and since I wanted Stefan to hit like a truck, the attack was exactly what I was looking for. Additionally, this attack would have been his signature shield break move. I did not have an innovative idea for his back air, because Stefan in the novel is more that upfront kind of guy. So I burned the attack with what Terry got in Smash Ultimates. It is kind of awkward to use, and its main purpose is to use it as a get off me tool. Okay, my explanation for up air might be a bit strange. On the surface it looks like the average jogging tool like Dr. Mario's up air in Smash Ultimate. But the main inspiration behind this attack was actually Sephiroth's up air in Smash Ultimate. I really like how much wind up the attack has, with a quick slash to round things off. The animation itself just looks satisfying, and I wanted to translate that exact feeling to Stefan. So yeah, give Sephiroth a frying pan instead of his sword, and there you go. Given the arc this move was planned to have, this attack would have been a great shocking tool, and landing up airs would have been Stefan's bread and butter. Down air is fairly simple, just a slam downwards with his frying pan. A frying slam of sorts. It's not a standout thing, but this attack was originally meant to be Stefan's stomp attack in Stomp Party. You see, it's all connected. So these are Stefan's normals. Now let's cover the special attacks, and now we're starting to get absurd. Because Stefan's side special would have been Kazuya's Electric Wind God Fist with a few changes. These being no invulnerability because the move already is busted as it is, it nullifying projectiles, and Stefan taking recoil damage. Aside these changes, everything is the same. The travel distance, the stun, the recovery time, nearly everything. On the ground it would have been exactly what we know from Tekken and Smash, but in the air it would be a downwards punch, with the only change being the knockback angle, because this version would send opponents downwards. Up special is plain and simple. Have you played Finn in Multiverses? Then you know what's up. Honestly, I kind of struggled with the recovery move for Stefan, because there isn't anything remotely usable in the novel. This move was also Stefan's recovery attack in Stomp Party. Down special would have been another crazy one, because the Electric Wind God Fist wasn't enough already, Stefan would have also gotten Melee Fox's Shine. It would differ in a few aspects, like Stefan taking recoil damage, the move not hitting on frame 1, overall being a handful of frames slower, and it would nullify projectiles rather than reflecting them. Most of the other traits of Shine would remain though. The sketch included in the document is nowhere near representative of how the move would have looked in game. This was one, if not the only visual I never had a clear vision for, but I knew I wanted that function in the game. Okay, there's a reason why I talk about Nutri Special last. It was originally planned to be a chargeable projectile. Think of Samus's charge shot in Smash Ultimate, but the shot would not get bigger the longer you charge, and you have to execute the attack once you started it. You would not have been able to store your charge. I won't spend too much time on this attack because Nutri Special was on the verge of being replaced by something different altogether before I left the team in March. An unfinalized concept would have made Stefan's frying pan a throwable item, and this in turn would also change his Nutri Special. A concept was in the making to rework his attack to be a slow and really strong attack like Hatchet Man from Hero in Smash Ultimate. The reason for that change would be to tie in with a currently unannounced DLC character that is still on track. So this was basically meant to benefit a function, a passive, of another character that we have not seen yet. No concept has ever been made for panless Nutri Special, but I can confirm that the throwable projectile attack would have been scrapped altogether. This never felt right to me and more like a forced reference of sorts. With that being said, I could confirm that Nutri Special would have been changed in the concept that was left on the halfway mark. Stefan's frying pan being a throwable item would have also impacted his up and down air attack. Panless down air would repurpose an alt down air idea that was meant to be included originally to make it distinct from the Storm Party attack. No concept for panless up air has ever been made though, but I always liked Hero's weird up air for some reason, so I might have gotten in that direction. And last but not least, the supers. Stefan would go back to an old concept for Cross Impact that included aerial and grounded supers, and for his aerial super, he would have gone with that old Storm Party concept. A powerful stall and fall command grab that deals massive damage to the grabbed opponent upon impacting the ground. When landing, the move would send 2 electric projectiles on both sides that both can break shields. So this move would be a neat option in doubles and free-for-alls. Given that this is an electric attack, Stefan would also take recoil damage, but it would not be too crazy compared to what I'm about to show you next. I think for Stefan's super on the ground, I'd rather show you what it was inspired by. Heavy spoiler warning for Dragon Ball Z, because I will now show a scene from the game Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
To make sure you can't put yourself back together, I'm going to blow you into microscopic pieces! Farewell, Bulma, Trunks. Yes, even you, Kakarot.
Yes, Stefan would have been able to blow himself up. This would be the closest thing to a screen nuke in Cross Impact. It would look rather similar to Hero's magic explosion in Smash Ultimate, but with a longer startup time. On startup, Stefan would have been wide open to attacks, but the explosion would obliterate stocks. Since this is an electric attack, Stefan would take 100% of recoil damage, the highest amount of recoil damage in the game. This attack would have been a massive commitment and solely exists for 2 reasons. to make Stefan's inclusion worthwhile, and Margin Vegeta was one of the most requested characters for Dragon Ball FighterZ. Just because people wanted to blow themselves up. This isn't something Stefan can do in the novel. This was just me taking creative liberty, but that this attack got the green light is just crazy to me. Cross Impact almost got a Green Nuke Super. Other than that, there would also have been the taunt, and for that, Stefan would eat a jelly-filled donut. In the novel, Stefan really likes pastries, and these jelly-filled donuts are among his favorites. Also, Stefan is from Berlin, and in Germany, one of these many names we gave this pastry is Berliner. There would have been voice lines where Stefan would have called the pastry by one of its many German names: Berliner, Krapfen, Kreppel or Pfannkuchen. And since Stefan takes so much damage by his electric attacks, he would heal 1% of damage for every successful taunt, creating some sort of push and pull mechanic. And since Stefan would have been voiced in Cross Impacts, I could confirm that I would have voiced him myself. I've already done so in the past, so there was no need in looking for new talent. Next up, alt costumes. Stefan of course would have gotten alt costumes, a majority of which represent characters from the novel. Alt 1 would have been his default, Alt 2 would be based on Claire Perrin, Stefan's best friend. Alt 3 would have been based on Luke Vermeulen, a young boy Stefan and Claire must take care of on their trip across Germany. Alt 4 would have been based on Daniel Sperrer, some sort of a rival Stefan encounters around the halfway mark of the novel. Alt 5 would have been based on Lucifer Madieu, the main antagonist. Alt 6 would have been based on me, the author. Alt 7 would switch a couple of colors from the original palette around, and Alt 8 would have been a grayscale alt to kind of a nod to e-readers and their lack of color display. Alt 6 would have most likely been replaced or altered since the original concept looked too similar to Alt 4. And there are 4 alts that would have never left the concept phase. These being alts based on Super Mario, Goku, Rayman, and the original color palette of the Storm Party logo. Before you ask, yes, all these alts have been previously pitched for Stefan's inclusion in Storm Party. Well, that was a lot about the character, but what about the stage and additional content all around this DLC? Well, I've got you covered with a stage, an assist, and even a special boss encounter for arcade mode. Starting off with the stage, which was originally pitched to be one of the 1000 tier Indie Rumble Kickstarter rewards. It is based on the 7th chapter and would have been heavily inspired by Yoshi's Island in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. The stage would have platforms on each side that rise up from the blast zone and back down again, but in regular intervals to be consistent and tournament viable. The main platform had no platform layout in the original pitch and would have basically been just a flat FD-like stage. But I was brainstorming a Pokemon Stadium 2-like layout for the main platform, so the stage might have ended up like a PS2 and Yoshi's Island Brawl hybrid. The stage was originally called The Sea at Night, and for that, as well as Stefan, I recorded announcer calls. Here, take a listen.
Stefan! 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 The Sea at Night! The Sea at Night! The Sea at Night!
The stage would have gotten a name change to Chapter 7 to reflect its medium of origin a bit better. Besides that, the stage would have been based on a real world place, this being the city of Münster in Germany, the city I was born in. For Storm Party, I even went back there to take photos of various places to kind of nail down the visuals of the stage. And since I wanted to smuggle as many OCs in Cross Impact as possible, I would have given a handful of characters from the novel a background cameo on the stage. Next up, the assist. This will be no surprise to anyone who read the novel, but the assist would be Claire Perrin, Stefan's best friend. Spoiler warning right now, skip to this timestamp if you don't want to be spoiled on the endgame of Anomalous Sanatorium Runaways. You have been warned. Claire had two functions conceptualized, a grounded one and an aerial one. When she was summoned on the ground, she would have walked forwards until she met an opponent. Upon contact, she would stab anyone in her way with a knife, leaving them in a stunned state. Claire would have been able to walk forwards until she either found an opponent, walked off stage, or stood in front of a ledge. She would disappear after she stabbed someone, died off the side, or idled in front of a ledge for too long. This is a reference to chapter 14. I will not go into much detail to keep spoilers to a minimum. The second function would be the aerial action. It is pretty similar to Peach's up B actually, with the added benefit that it would restore your double jump. Cross Impact has been criticized for its assists that they are basically just attacks that use half of your meter, so I wanted to design Claire in a way to counteract this, so she's more like a recovery assist rather than just an attack. Due to problems with collisions and assists and Claire's arguably complex behavior on the ground, I thought about scrapping the grounded option entirely. This would be more like a thing if we could sort it out programming wise, otherwise she would just have the aerial function. No base sprite for Claire has ever been made. Of course, every character has their arcade mode routes, and Stefan would be no different, but his design of the arcade mode would go against the core idea of anything you have seen in arcade mode so far. Stefan's arcade mode was going to be a glorified boss rush with some unique traits to reflect Stefan's struggles and hardships from the novel. It would tie in right after the trailer would have ended, starting with a fight against Arthur with a Puss in Boots assist, followed up by a fight against X, then King Pablo, then the Golden Alpaca, and then both V2 and Gabriel simultaneously. Although it is unknown if that would have been possible from a technical standpoint. We will return to arcade mode in a couple of minutes, but now let's focus our attention to Daniel, who would have been the final boss in this arcade mode. Daniel Sperrer originates from chapter 7 of the novel, and he takes some sort of a rival form during his first encounter with Stefan. Due to the main antagonist Lucifer Madieu not really being known for any physical action, Daniel was the more fitting character for the spot. Daniel's unique mechanic would have been called Ultra Armor. Daniel would have been in a permanent state of invulnerability. Your attacks would not deal any damage and they would result in you being knocked away by Daniel. Daniel cannot be interrupted during his attacks either, so he practically is undefeatable. But here's the catch. Ultra Armor is nothing more than a permanent shield with infinite HP, so shield break moves can break Ultra Armor, which would leave Daniel wide open for attacks for a couple of seconds. Your super attacks, forward air and the later reworked neutral special would have been attacks that were able to break shields and thus Ultra Armor. So much for Daniel's unique mechanic, but now let's focus on his moveset consisting of 3 grounded moves, 1 aerial move and 1 special move. Daniel's first grounded attack would have been a normal bat swing like Jacket's F-tilt, with insanely beefed up stats. It was meant to be his shield breaker and it could KO Stefan in 3 or 4 touches. Daniel's second grounded attack would have been a stun move inspired by Negan's While Standing 2 in Tekken 7. This move in combination with a prior one would have been a nasty combo. This move was conceptualized while Cross Impact still had its old shield system. Nowadays this move would deal 1 point of damage to your shields most likely. Daniel's third grounded move once again would be inspired by Negan in Tekken 7 as well. Why? Well, Daniel in the novel is inspired by Negan in general. This attack would have been similar to the no exceptions bash Negan gave Galen in the show. A nasty meteor that would have popped you off the ground and up into the air if not tagged. This would achieve easy vertical kills if not DI'd. The aerial attack might be the worst of the bunch. A kind of clunky forward swing that sends at a nasty downwards angle and deals massive damage and hit stun. So if you're hit off stage, with that you're screwed, but it has a lot of startup and does not really pair that well with Daniel's jump height. Daniel's special attack would have been a down B counter like we've seen a million times. This would have been his only option against shield break moves, except supers. And since Stefan's shield break normals would have been kind of slow, this attack served the purpose of simply creating tension. A punishment for rushing in and mindlessly using your slowest moves. This counter would have nullified projectiles and armored through anything including supers. Daniel's best and arguably only option to deal with pressure from above. No base sprite for Daniel has ever been made. We will revisit Daniel later in this video, but now let's focus on something different, the additional content alongside this DLC. Since Cross Impact is planning a trophies update, there would have been trophies for all the relevant characters from the novel. As for music, one of our musicians would have remixed the original track that Mikano composed as a theme song for the novel. Stefan's render would be based on this artwork done by Zeb shown on screen. In terms of finances, this character would have put very little strain on the Cross Impact budget, due to me doing all the animation work for free. Additional stuff like stages or the music would have also been paid by me. Overall, the production of the Stefan DLC would be 3 times more expensive than any other character on average, making Stefan the estimated single highest DLC in terms of production cost. When only counting all the materials that have already been produced so far, Stefan would already be among the top 5 most expensive DLC productions thus far, and this is all due to the trailer. And this was all achieved by spending $0 of the Cross Impact budget. You may ask, how's this possible? This DLC does not seem all that different from all the other characters. Well, for one, the production cost of the trailer is already as high as the production of a single character on average. And secondly, I have only shown you what was included in the original draft. Next up are some additional ideas that, to my surprise, have all been greenlit by the director. The following ideas were not part of the original draft, while the stuff I've already talked about were necessary to be greenlit with almost next to no compromises for the DLC to be representative of the novel. What I'm talking about next could have been just shut down with no effect on the DLC. First up, a quick freebie, a Daniel assist. This would have been an unlockable if you would have beaten Stefan's arcade mode route on any difficulty. This was greenlit pretty much immediately because there was no additional sprite work needed for this assist. Secondly, cutscenes for arcade mode. During its Kickstarter, Cross Impact had a stretch goal for a story mode. While this stretch goal has never been reached, a script for dialogue in between matches was written and at one point partially implemented into the game. This script would have been repurposed and optimized for Stefan's arcade route to include cutscenes that better tie the events of the arcade mode and his trailer together. No dialogue for the cutscenes have ever been written and no sketches were ever made. There is still one more thing, and this might be the craziest thing that got the green light. Last but not least, a full-on Echo Fight for Stefan got the green light to be included alongside everything else I have outlined so far. Enter Stefan Overcharged, an alternate version of Stefan. If the player would have beaten arcade mode with Stefan under some specific conditions, a special cutscene would play after the final stage, granting you access to the bonus stage. Stefan transforms into his overcharged state, which slightly alters his properties, which we will touch on in a bit. The bonus stage of Stefan's arcade mode would be a rematch against Daniel, with the change that the player takes control of this altered form of Stefan. In this fight, there is no need to break Daniel's ultra armor because Stefan Overcharged is so strong that he can power through regardless. From a technical perspective, we would have just got rid of Daniel's ultra armor for that fight, because making every move of a character into a shield breaker would be way too overpowered, and that has a very specific reason. After beating the bonus stage, you would unlock an orchestral version of the main theme and Stefan Overcharged as a playable character in every mode except arcade mode. But what sets Stefan Overcharged apart? Well, you will no longer take recoil damage from his electric attacks and instead takes gradual damage as time progresses, so it's either kill quick or get killed quick. Another key difference would have been that Stefan Overcharged would no longer be able to use a shield and instead gain access to the perfect parry. Inspired by Super Sonic 2 and Sonic Frontiers The Final Horizon, Stefan would be able to deflect any attack and projectile, including shield break moves and cross attacks. His taunt would also change into a counter attack. Stefan Overcharged crosses his arms, and if he gets attacked during the beginning of his taunt, he would counter attack the opponent instantly. The visuals would have been inspired by Akuma from Street Fighter and Super Sonic 2 from Sonic Frontiers The Final Horizon. This counter would not lead to any combos, it would just be a neat thing to have. Other attributes like run speed, damage output, etc. would have most likely been increased to make this version of Stefan stand out more. The specifics would have been discussed during the balancing phase. This form basically would have been a huge what-if scenario reflecting the one time Stefan got electrocuted in the second chapter of the novel. The whole point of Stefan Overcharge was to blow up the value of the DLC and to create a WTF moment when you first encounter him in Stefan's arcade mode route and a second time when the game tells you that you can now play this beast in regular play. The inclusion of Stefan Overcharge would not be hinted at in the trailer, and all the team could tell you would be that you are in for a special treat if you beat Stefan's arcade mode under certain conditions. And that concludes the concept of Stefan becoming, or rather not becoming, a playable character in Cross Impact. But now you may ask, why? Why was he cut from the roster? On the 10th of March 2024, I resigned from my position as the co-director. Dallon reserved the seat for me until I rejoined the team 3 months later on June 18th, 2024, after I passed my finals. I turned down the position anyhow, and this has one simple reason. Long story short, I lost my passion for platform fighters, and I actively developed a distaste against the fighting game community. Communities tended to more toxicity than I was comfortable with, and the market was oversaturated with games, and the games appealed less and less to me. I feel no urge to try any new platform fighters. Every game wants to be the next big thing, but somehow everything falls flat for me. My passion died and my wish to have my creations in a platform fighter alongside with it. But I must admit that Cross Impact always felt different to me, like a diamond in the rough. A loving community that accepts its little game for what it is, and a game that does not try to be the next big thing, but rather a passion project from a couple of people that are really passionate about platform fighters and crossovers in general. For me, Cross Impact has been a great learning experience, but sadly, this will be the end of the road for me. I'm still on the team, but do not expect any meaningful contributions from my end. I may lend a hand in some animations here and there, but I will not be really active on the team any longer. And although my history with platform fighters took a rather sour turn at the end, I want to thank everyone on the Cross Impact team. And a very special thanks goes out to my homie Dallon Larsen. I've seen this man grow like crazy over the past few months, and even though there are some slip-ups here and there, I see that he's trying his best. He may not be without faults, but I sure got to know him as a damn good man, and it will stay by every word I use to defend him. And besides, who even is perfect? I sure am not. There are a lot of people that can verify this. Give people the room they need to grow, and if you don't, you either work actively against the very changes you ask for, or you just put on a blindfold. Either outcome is not beneficial for either party. Well, this was the history of Stefan, the guest that never will be in Cross Impact. I hope you liked this video, and if you like this concept, I have good news for you. There are still a lot more characters coming up that I made concepts for. But still, there is one more thing I would like to show you. Last but not least, here is the animated bit of the Stefan reveal trailer. Seb, I'm very sorry that we cannot show this in the fashion we have envisioned it, and Miguel, now you know why you became the new voice of Orthio. These were the mystery takes I told you to record like 2 years ago or so.
Yahoo! No.
We do look kinda similar, don't you think?
Huh?
I wanna fight you, to see who's the strongest.
Huh? Am I mumbling or are you deaf? I said I wanna fight you.
From this point onward, I will start a new chapter in my life. I got my dream job as a barkeeper, I can finally return to writing novels, I can get back to playing video games, and I'm starting my own journey as a game dev. I want my creativity to be the pillars of my life, and although building them will be hard, I know that this will be my path to happiness. Thank you for watching.